Imagine being just a child and facing a death sentence. In the United States, this dark reality became a tragic truth for the youngest individuals ever sentenced to death. The chilling stories of these young people reveal a system that wrestles with moral boundaries, justice, and the consequences of young lives ruined before they even had a chance to live. But what drove these children to such extremes? Were they mere victims of circumstances, or was there a more sinister side to their actions? Over the years, several minors were condemned to death, sparking debates about the very essence of justice in childhood innocence. They were not hardened criminals, but children, often with broken homes, troubled pasts, and abusive environments. How could the law, which is supposed to protect the vulnerable, justify executing such young lives? These cases present a stark reflection of the limits of mercy and compassion in the criminal justice system. Each execution left behind more questions than answers, especially concerning the final words and the haunting last meals of these young offenders. The story of George Stinney Jr. is the first to grip you. In 1944, at just 14 years old, Stinney became the youngest person ever executed in the United States in the 20th century. Convicted of the brutal murders of two young white girls, his trial lasted only a few hours, and his defense was virtually non-existent. Stinney's final moments were horrifyingly brief. After a rapid trial, his life was cut short by the electric chair. But was he guilty? Many now question whether his confession was coerced and if the rush to execute him was based on racial prejudices rather than solid evidence. Then there's the case of Lionel Tate, who was just 12 years old when he was sentenced to death for the murder of a 6-year-old girl. Unlike many others, Tate didn't set out to kill. His crime was committed during a wrestling match that turned tragic. His case raised eyebrows not only because of his young age, but because it highlighted the deep flaws in understanding child psychology in relation to violent behavior. His death sentence was later overturned, but it didn't erase the chilling notion of a child facing death row. The case of Lezmond Mitchell is equally perplexing. In 2001, Mitchell, at the age of 20, became one of the few Native Americans sentenced to death under federal jurisdiction. But his crime, committed at a young age, was nothing short of horrific. Along with his accomplice, Mitchell was convicted of the gruesome murder of a grandmother and her granddaughter on the Navajo Nation reservation. What sets this case apart, however, is the series of appeals and the debates over the morality of executing someone for crimes committed while still a minor. Was Mitchell merely a product of his environment, or did his actions reflect a deeper and more violent nature? However, the most recent case that has sparked controversy is that of a young girl named Christina, who, though ultimately not executed, was sent to death row at 15 for the murder of her stepfather. Her story captivated the nation, particularly because of her gender and age. Did society fail her, or was she just another example of a troubled youth who turned to violence for survival? In her last moments before her trial, she begged for mercy, but the legal system seemed deaf to her cries. Just when you think the story couldn't get any darker, the issue of final words and last meals adds a surreal layer of human drama. For these young offenders, their final requests were a poignant reminder of their lost childhood. George Stinney Jr., who had no last meal, was instead given a slice of cake from the jailhouse kitchen. Lionel Tate requested a simple last meal, but never had the chance to consume it, his life snuffed out before he could even begin to savor it. Meanwhile, Lezmond Mitchell's last meal was a ritualistic moment of finality, with no remorse or forgiveness offered. What do these requests reveal about the humanity of those who execute the law? If you are still with us, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Back to the topic. The last words of these children have stayed with the public, echoing in the minds of many who question the justice of it all. Stinney's final words were barely heard before his life was taken. Tate's last words, though filled with desperation, were never given the chance to lead to any form of redemption. As the system prepared to end their lives, these children begged for their lives to be spared, but their cries went unheard. What do the final words and last meals tell us about the justice system's power over life and death? In the end, the death sentences of these young offenders leave a lingering question. Should the death penalty be allowed for children? With cases like George Stinney and Lionel Tate showing us the horrors of sentencing minors to death, it's clear that there is an undeniable need to reconsider the ethical boundaries of justice. Despite the tragic outcomes, these cases force the legal system to re-examine the fairness of executing young offenders. But the question remains, how far should society go in holding children accountable for crimes they may not fully understand? And while the law may no longer be able to take their lives, the pain and the loss remain. In the case of Lezmond Mitchell, his appeals kept his sentence alive long after his crime. In Christina's case, the emotional scars have yet to heal. These stories force us to reflect not just on their actions, but on how we as a society choose to handle the most vulnerable members among us. What is the ultimate price for justice? As the years pass, these young lives remain a powerful reminder of the flaws in a system that once believed in executing minors. The stories of George Stinney, Lionel Tate, Lezmond Mitchell, and others continue to raise the question, how do we balance justice and mercy? The irreversible nature of the death penalty, particularly when imposed on children, remains a burden on our collective conscience. The final words and last meals of these young offenders are haunting echoes of a time when the law did not protect the most vulnerable, but took away their very futures. In this ongoing debate, we are left to ask, was justice truly served? Or did these children pay the ultimate price for a society that failed to protect them before it was too late? The questions remain unanswered in the echo of their lost lives.